Good morning. So nice to have you with us in whatever way you can be on this particular weekend as we at St. Bartholomew's once again rethink what it means to be community. If you are watching this sermon, then you may be watching the service from home. But others joined us in person on Saturday at 5 o'clock. First time we've had services on campus since March, which is unbelievable. Who would have thought? And then, of course, this morning at 9 o'clock. And those services are also being live streamed. So once again, community as we once thought of it, we now are learning, is so much bigger. And I think that's why it is so interesting in God's time, in Kairos time, that we are having our first services on campus this particular weekend when we celebrate St. Francis Day. St. Francis Day we tend to associate with the blessing of the animals, and I encourage all of you to bring your critters nearby, because we're going to have a blessing prayer for all of them. And if you don't have a critter in person, I say get a picture, or in my case, a stuffy, and I'm going to tell you more about this particular guy because he's pretty special. So just bring your animal critters with you. If they, the two-legged, the four-legged, those that swim, those who fly, those who hop, those who slither, all of them, because really, even though we associate St. Francis Day, St. Francis Weekend with the blessing of animals, and it's cute, and we certainly love our animal companions, it's really based in something far deeper, because Francis, it's almost like he took Jesus' word from the gospel when Jesus said toward the end of his life, "Father, may they be one as you and I are one." And we tend to think of that, at least I tend to think of that, as people. May we be one as Jesus and his Father, his Abba, were one. But Francis really had this vision of expanding it. It wasn't just that people are one with another, but it's this profound sense of being in unity and one with the whole of creation, which includes critters. But also it goes so far beyond. And the way Francis was able to explain that and talk about that was so profound, because these many, many centuries later, we are still recalling him and the really radical message that he portrayed. So this day, while we remember our animal companions, it goes way, way beyond. So I want to really start this sermon with a saying of Francis, not one of the ones we normally hear, say from the prayer attributed to St. Francis, beginning, "Lord, make me an instrument of your peace," which is deep and profound and something we are called to live in at all times. You could certainly use it now. But this is a less known phrase of his, which I'm going to ask you just to keep in mind. And I wrote it down, even though it's a line, to make sure I got it right. He wrote, "A single sunbeam is enough to drive away many shadows." A single sunbeam is enough to drive away many shadows. I think many of us feel like there have been many, many shadows, out and out darkness. Because of COVID, we have been in quarantine. Many of us severely limiting or curtailing activities and who we see and what we do, even simple things, or would have been simple things such as going to a movie or going out to dinner, all of a sudden requires thinking, and are we safe doing that? And so it's really caused many of us to fall into what I've heard referred to as the COVID slump. So it's easy to forget that there are sunbeams out there. And certainly our animal companions are among the many sunbeams out there, which have this ability to drive away the many shadows. So I want to talk to you about this guy. Even though obviously he's not a breathing animal, I'd say, in his own way. He is a live animal. And so this guy, and I don't know why he's a guy, to me he's just always been a guy, came into my life maybe 25, actually probably more than that, 30 years ago. And I was going to have surgery, and it was a surgery that really concerned me. I was going to be staying in the hospital several days. And so a friend of mine, a night or so before I went to the hospital, and knew I love bulldogs, I had grown up with bulldogs, brought me this guy to take to the hospital. And she said, you know, be sure and take him to the hospital, or she called him too, and he will look out for you. So I did, and I thought while I was at the hospital, obviously everything came out fine, that people would come into my room pretty much just to hug the bulldog. They might check on me too, but really it was all about the bulldog. Maybe 5 or so years after that, I had a friend who was having surgery, a very serious surgery, much more serious than mine, and she was really worried, and so I gave him to her. And I never expected to get him back. It was truly a gift. And she did get through her surgery fine as well. And maybe 6 months or so afterwards, she gave him back to me. She had to go back in the hospital again for a second surgery, and same thing. I gave her the bulldog, and he made his way back to me. So since then, in the many, many years since this guy was given to me, he's probably been with people in the hospital, I don't know, maybe 10 times. He's become the hospital dog. Last time was maybe about 6 months ago, when a person from St. Bart's was going to be having a procedure that required that she spend the night in the hospital. So I said, well, here, you know, this is the person, the thing you need to bring with you. And she took a picture of it. It was really awesome. So he's gotten a little long of tooth, like we do. He's now missing an eye, and because of multiple washings, his coat is not all shiny and quite as soft as it once was. But what he has now, instead of all those things, is all the love and the prayers that have followed him into the hospital and then out again. And so just to be near him, at least I do, I think we can feel the specialness of him. Let's see if I can get him back, right? Where'd he go? So I think part of the reason that this particular guy has been so special, among everything that he's just adorable, is that people have such profound feelings about their animal companions that even looking at a stuffed animal all of a sudden evokes that kind of feeling. You know, the old adage, you know, God is just dog spelled backwards, and that's probably true. He is a sunbeam. I hope he continues to be a sunbeam. But here's the thing. Pull close these critters that you love. Pull close to you the people you love. And remember that even though so often it feels like we can't do enough, we're not doing enough to help what's going on, to alleviate suffering, or to help other people, or even, you know, suffering ourselves, that even just a sunbeam is enough to chase away the shadows. We don't have to engage in grand gestures. We don't have to do the really big thing. Sometimes if we can just remember to be that sunbeam, it will help bring about what we just heard from the gospel when Jesus says, you know, my yoke is light and my burden is easy. And gosh, it hasn't felt that way. But I think we get into this, like, I'm so wise, I can figure everything out, like he also talks about, is because we get into the worldly wise. And while there's nothing wrong with that per se, we forget that that's not the whole of wisdom, and it's not even the most important. The most important is to be that sunbeam, to be that spark, to be that little bit of God that we see so often in our animal companions. And if we remember nothing else from this weekend, to be that sunbeam is plenty. It's enough. Because a single sunbeam is indeed enough to drive away many shadows.